Good evening, America. I'm David Englishman. Welcome to the Dave Englishman Show. So I want to get right into tonight's show. I honestly believe that this is going to be the most important show that I'm ever going to do. I believe this is going to be the most impactful show. And I'm going to get into the reasons why. So as you know, tonight's Sunday night. We have an election coming up in literally 3 days from now. Well, 2 days from now. 3 nights. So I wanted to start off with, I got this in the mail. And I want to read this to you. This is a publication of Hillsdale College. I want to read you a couple of paragraphs, and then I'm going to get right into tonight's show because this kind of sums up everything that I want to talk about and why it's so important. So this is written by Brian Kennedy. He's the president of the American Strategy Group, chairman of the Committee for the Present Danger, China, and board member and senior fellow of the Claremont Institute, where he served as president from 2002 to 2015. He's written widely on national security affairs and public policy, including the Wall Street Journal, National Review, Investors Business Daily, and Real Clear Politics. He's the author of Communist China's War Inside America. So he states, we're at risk of losing a war today because too few of us know that we are engaged with an enemy. The Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, that means to destroy us. The forces of globalism that have dominated our government until recently, meaning under Trump, and our media for the better part of a half century, like I told you, they've been controlled by the CIA, have blinded too many Americans to the threat that we face. If we do not wake up to the danger soon, we will find ourselves helpless. This is a worst-case scenario. I do not think that we as Americans will let that happen, but the forces arrayed against us are many. We need to understand what we are up against and what steps must be taken to ensure our victory. And this publication goes on. I'm going to look and see if I can find this online, and if I can, I'm going to post this in the show notes as well. But it's quite an interesting read. As you can see, it goes on for quite a bit. So that's to start off with. So I want to start off, we're going to call this segment the Biden segment. And I want to start off with impeachment and why it happened. So as you know, the Democrats had a star witness for their impeachment, right? So it says, and this is out of a couple of different articles, the Democrats' new star impeachment witness apparently has suspicious and concerning ties to the same Ukrainian gas company at the center of the Biden-Ukrainian scandal. So I took this from an article that was out in January of this year during the impeachment. Bill Taylor is his name. He was hauled in to testify in the Democrats' secretive closed-door impeachment inquiry hearing. Taylor has a close relationship with the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank, and previously wrote Ukraine policy pieces with the organization's director and analysis articles published by the council. Taylor, for the last 9 years, also served as a senior advisor to the U.S.-Ukraine Business Council, which has co-hosted events with the Atlantic Council and has participated in events co-hosted jointly by the Atlantic Council and Burisma. A trip to Ukraine in August, organized by the Burisma-funded Atlantic Council for 10 congressional aides, reveals that a staffer on Representative Adam Schiff's House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence held a meeting during the trip with Taylor. The pre-planned trip took place after the so-called whistleblower officially filed his August 12th complaint and reportedly after a Schiff aide was contacted by the so-called whistleblower. So I want to show you, and I'm going to get into a lot of things tonight. I don't know how long the show is going to go. Hopefully it's just around an hour. But I want to show you what has led us to the point that we're at. And I want to bring in some things about Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. And then I'm going to get into who are the other players within our government that are involved in this scandal. And then I'm going to show you some things which I think are going to blow your mind. So I want to start off with, we're going to go to Tucker Carlson. I'm going to show you about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of this. I want you to pay attention because this is really, really, really important. I wouldn't waste your time, but this is really important stuff. And we're going to load.
What did he say to you?
You mean the morning after he spoke?
That's right.
There was 10 people running around, getting him something to drink, and we were backstage in a cramped space, and he asked me to walk with him out to the car, and he just asked, how I did and what I thought of his speech, and I thought he did a great job in the speech, and obviously cancer is a very serious thing that we should all be working together to solve. I just lost a sister-in-law within the last 2 weeks, sadly, to cancer, and then he just sort of asked me to keep an eye on his son and his brother. Yeah.
What do you think he meant by that?
I think it was conscious of things, and I can't speak for him. Maybe
Right.
I would love for him to go on record. As I referenced earlier, I'm only sitting here because they have not only have they not gone on record, they've denied it, and they've tarred my family name and a long history of serving this country, and have other congressmen now talking about Russian disinformation.
This whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin.
I held a top secret clearance from the NSA and the DOE. I served this country for 4 years in one of the most elite environments in the world, Naval Nuclear Power Training Command. And to have a congressman out there speaking about Russian disinformation, or Joe Biden at a public debate referencing Russian disinformation, when he knows he sat face to face with me, that I was traveled around the world with his son and his brother, to say that and associate that with my name is absolutely disgusting to me.
So that's Tony Bobulinski. He is one of, he was brought in by Hunter Biden and his other partners to be the CEO of their company, in which Bobulinski found out that they were money laundering and that Joe Biden was in on it. He met with Joe Biden numerous times. So let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go and take a listen to what Rudy Giuliani has to say. And again, I'm only going to play you
the American people are stupid.
a minute.
It's not going to change the needle if the American people find out that Joe Biden was going to take.
I apologize. I didn't think this was going to do this. It does every single time. So anyway, he basically says that, and I'll put this in the show notes so you can watch it yourself, that the emails that have come out, and they've already been proven that the emails are real. They ran them by a company that can go in and they can look at the metadata and find out where the emails came from and track their accuracy. And they said that the emails that are coming back and forth to Hunter Biden's computers are all real. So in one case, the owner of Burisma is actually engaged in an email with Hunter in which he thanks him for setting up the meeting in which he meets with Vice President Biden. And meanwhile, they're taking millions of dollars out of the Ukraine. And Joe, who's been reported in the emails as the big guy, it's now come out from another source, which is a business partner of Hunter Biden's, who now sits in jail. Meanwhile, Biden and Devin Archer are out of jail for doing exactly the same things. That person has turned over all of their emails, and the big guy is referenced as Joe Biden, and it's proven in his emails. So Joe Biden has been involved in a money laundering scheme with the Ukraine, with China, and with many other countries in which he's a direct beneficiary of money. So at the same time, Hunter Biden flies over to China with his father on Air Force Two and gets introduced to a Chinese spy. And the Chinese spy is also a person who runs a lot of Chinese lucrative money laundering schemes. And one of them was to set the Bidens up so that they would own them for life. So it's come out that Hunter has numerous child pedo videos that were made of him in China because they set him up. and they had video cameras recording him raping underage girls. Raping. And I'll get to that a little later in the show. So, I wanted to get into what the real scandal is. So, the scandal involves Romney, Kerry, Biden, McCain, Pelosi, Schiff, Mueller, and the Clintons. They're all tied to the sketchy Ukraine deals. So it says here, and I'll put all of the links where I got all of the information in the show notes. It says, Biden and now Kerry, scandal in the Ukraine is much more than about the money paid to Hunter Biden for being a board member at the largest gas producer in Ukraine, which is called Burisma Holdings. The real scandal involves billions in funds from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the U.S. in aid that has gone missing. Missing. And I'm going to get to that a little later. So remember that. The money is missing. A second staffer for Rep. Adam Schiff served as a fellow for the Atlantic Council, a think tank that is funded by and works in partnership with Burisma, the natural gas company at the center of allegations regarding Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden, Sean Misko. Sean Misko has been described as close friends with Eric Ciaramella. That name sound familiar? Eric Ciaramella was the whistleblower during the impeachment. Remember, they couldn't say his name? Just go on Google. Actually, don't go to Google. Go to DuckDuckGo and type in Eric Ciaramella. Ciaramella. Whom Real Clear Investigation suggests is the likely so-called whistleblower. Misko reportedly joined Schiff's staff at the House Intelligence Committee in August. The same month, the so-called whistleblower's complaint was filed after the first reportedly interfacing with a staffer for Schiff's office. So, Adam Schiff, which I'll get to later, is also tied to Burisma. So, when they heard that Trump had made a phone call to the president of Ukraine, congratulating him on his win, and then the Bidens came up and Trump said, well, you should investigate them. Well, Trump was well within his purview to ask of that request, and there was no quid pro quo. But as we're going to see a little later on, Joe's involved in quid pro quo. So as soon as they heard that, they knew that Trump was following through on things that he already knew from the evidence that he had seen, showing that all of these people were on the take. And so now there was a massive cover-up, and the only way they could cover it up was to try to impeach Trump, a coup in the House against the President of the United States. They have divided our country on their own lies and their webs of deceit. So Mitt Romney's national security advisor in his 2012 campaign was a career CIA spook. His name was Joseph Coffer Black, listed as Coffer Black. He rose to the CIA's top levels. He sits on the board of directors of Burisma, the Ukrainian gas company that formerly paid Hunter Biden $50,000 a month despite his complete lack of credentials and qualifications. It is also an odd coincidence that Mitt has, as CNN puts it, been a lone Republican voice expressing concern about President Donald Trump's July phone call with Vladimir Zelensky, in which Trump asked the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his family. Coffer Black left the CIA in 2006, but does anyone ever really leave the CIA, especially after being a spook? He joined Blackwater, the huge contractor for services related to military and intelligence actions, where he served as vice chairman until 2008. Now fast forward to February 2017 when Black joined the board of directors of Burisma, 6 months after the departure of Hunter Biden. Getting kind of interesting, huh? So, it goes on. In a section of the Senate report titled Secretary of State John Kerry, that's the title, it says Secretary of State John Kerry falsely claimed that he had no knowledge about Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board. Senate Republican staffers wrote that various records suggested that Kerry did in fact know about Hunter Biden and Burisma. The report says that on May 13th, 2014, one day after Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, Kerry's stepson, Chris Hines, emailed Kerry's chief of staff to inform him of the development. Hines, who was Hunter Biden's business partner, also wanted to distance himself from the decision, according to the report. Why would he want to distance himself? So you've got John Kerry, who was the Secretary of State, knew about the Bidens. It also was reported to the Obama administration, and some people on the Obama administration, off and on the record, said that they thought that this was a conflict of interest. We're going to get to that a little later. So if you're wondering why Nancy Pelosi is laying low on the topic of Joe Biden and Burisma, she has a son of her own involved in oil importing from Ukraine. He even used his mom to promote his business. Junior Pelosi's company, Visk Oil, is under investigation for securities fraud. It seems as though the public management of the company, which included Paul Pelosi Jr. as president and COO, was actually a Potemkin arrangement that hid the fact that the company was actually controlled by a pair of convicted felons. So now we have two major Democrats with kids involved in financial dealings in Ukraine. We also know that Ukraine was involved in trying to assist the Clinton campaign to dig up evidence of wrongdoing by Paul Manafort. My guess is that there's a lot more lurking out there once President Trump motivates what passes for law enforcement in Ukraine to start investigating in earnest. So it goes on further, and it says in this article there's only two, but that's not true. You got Pelosi, you've got Kerry, and you've got Biden. And then you have Adam Schiff, who has staffers that are directly linked to Burisma. What's Schiff getting as far as kickbacks? Oh, we're going to get to that. So Steve Hilton, a Fox News commentator who over the weekend had connected some Burisma corruption dots, had this to say about the Connecticut U.S. Senator Dick Blumenthal's association with the tangled knot of corruption in Ukraine. We cross-referenced the Senate co-sponsors of Ed Markey, his Ukrainian gas bill, with the list of Democrats whom Burisma lobbyist David Leiter routinely gave money to, and found another one of the most sanctimonious of them all. Actually, it was Senator Richard Blumenthal. So I say to all my Connecticut folk that watch my show, please pass this around. Make sure it goes to as many people as possible. Dick Blumenthal is directly related to the Burisma Holdings Company that Biden, Pelosi's son, Kerry's son, Romney, they're all involved in Ukraine, and they're all taking money back. That's the reason why Romney was the only one who voted for impeachment. Romney was the only senator from the GOP who voted for impeachment. So it says here, Hilton first rolls out the cast of characters. You have Devon Archer, the longtime business partner of Joe Biden's son. Hunter joined the board of directors of Burisma, a natural gas producer in Ukraine, sometime in April 2014. Soon after, Archer had a private meeting with Vice President Biden at the White House late into the night, according to White House records. 2 days later, Hunter Biden, Vice President Joe Biden's son, also joined the Burisma board, and 3 days later, Vice President Biden went to Ukraine with promises of U.S. taxpayer cash for the Ukrainian gas industry. Money some believed undeserved soon started flowing Hunter Biden's way. Burisma recompensed Hunter somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 a month for his questionable services. The only thing that he did was to get influence through his father. And he was compensated. This article says $50,000 a month, and some have said it's $83,000 a month, with some payouts of upwards of $1.5 million for signing the deal. So, get a load of this. Again, Connecticut, wake up, because Chris Murphy is no saint. President Donald Trump accused Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy of threatening the Ukrainian leader. Senator Chris Murphy literally threatened the president of Ukraine that if he doesn't do things right, stating they won't have Democrat support in our Congress. Trump said this at a press conference in New York. So, everything Trump has told us has always come out and proven to be true. No matter what the far left lunatics say, Trump's a liar, he's lied 20,000 times. They keep pulling up all this crap because they believe Politico and all the rest of these, media matters. Media to them doesn't matter at all. They have absolutely no moral compass and no integrity. CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, they're all the same. They are all controlled by the CIA. They are all parroting exactly the same thing. Turn on any channel and listen to what they're saying. On any given day, they're all using the same lingo. It's disgusting. So it gets worse. How is Schiff connected? Well, Schiff's connected to both BlackRock and Franklin Templeton Investments, two companies that were named in the $7.4 billion Burisma U.S.-Ukraine corruption claim that was announced. So get a load of this. During the 2016 election year, other founders and funders of the Atlantic Council included liberal billionaire George Soros with his Open Society Network and the law firm of Perkins Coie. Who is the law firm of Perkins Coie? They're the ones who actually put together the document which became the Steele dossier, which they tried to use against Donald Trump to get him out of office by claiming there was Russian collusion. It's funny how all these names keep popping up over and over and over again. They're all interconnected, and yet the lunatics on the left can't put two and two together. Must be because they're using Common Core math, which is what they're trying to teach our children in school to F up their minds and keep them as stupid as your everyday far leftist. Because they are useful idiots. So it says here, the law firm Perkins Coie, which represented the Hillary Clinton campaign in hiring Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that produced the Steele dossier. Really small world, right? So, welcome to Washington, the foreign aid scam that has gone on in D.C. for decades. It's the basic form for becoming a Congress critter or a member of the swamp, a senator or a congressperson, and winding up with $100 to $200 million fortunes on a congressman's $175,000 a year salary. The essence of it is Congress granting foreign aid to a country. The recipient country's leaders take their cut. And when it arrives, more often than not, that turns out to be the whole amount and then passes along the D.C. fraction to overseas banks. And it gets laundered into one bank in one country after another, until you almost can't trace it unless you start doing legitimate detective work, which is what the FBI has done now on the Hunter Biden case. And if you go and you read what's on the Senate report that they've dug up, okay, you're going to see some admissions on there where they've tied together the banks that have colluded in the money laundering schemes. So it says here, a congressional junket, a group of congressmen, sometimes has to travel to that part of the world to direct the local banks appropriately as to what to do with their cut. Murphy was in Ukraine. You've got Pelosi was in Ukraine. They can tie Romney in Ukraine. Biden was in Ukraine. Hell, he even is on tape saying that if they didn't fire the prosecutor who was investigating Burisma, that his son sat on the board of directors, that Ukraine wasn't going to get their $1 billion. And then he goes on to say, and what do you know? They fired the prosecutor. That is your quid pro quo. So, like I've said before, everything they accuse Trump and conservatives are doing, they themselves do every single time. The locals have learned exactly what they need to do for the DC crowd to keep the motor running. All that money eventually does come back to the USA in their bank accounts, It's how in the last 20 years that D.C. has moved from 84th or so in nation per capita income. So by cities, they moved into number 1. That process has become the driving force of the entire federal government during the last 50 years. And unfortunately, parts of the U.S. military have been sucked into the same cycle. But Trump's in the process of breaking that game apart. So I want to show you something that I hope will cheer you up. So this is a Trump rally in Pennsylvania. This is just one day ago. 35,000 people showed up. Trump's fighting for us every single day. And we're going to go into a few other things. So in election news, speaking on Just the News AM television show, Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage, some of you may know the name, he asserted that much of the American polling industry works in tandem with the mainstream media to disincentivize GOP voters from going to the polls on Election Day. He says, I think that polling is often used by the establishment as a way of disincentivizing the other side to go out and vote. On the morning of Brexit, there was a poll released that said, Remain were 10 points ahead. And it was done very simply to say to potential Leave voters, do you know what? If it's raining, don't bother to get down to the local school or anywhere else to vote because you're going to lose anyway. And that's the same thing the Democrats are trying to do to Trump supporters right now. He says, I also think that after the year we've been through and after the hysteria over Black Lives Matter and the fear that if we even question this Marxist movement, that somehow we're going to be condemned for being racist and put on some list or treated in some way badly, I think the phenomenon of the shy Trumper who's just not going to tell the pollster what they think for fear that they're going to be knocked down in a book somewhere is even greater than it was 4 years ago. So with that being said, I want to go and I want to show you, I'm going to read you something in a minute that's very disheartening to me, and we're going to get into why. But I want to introduce you to a guy whose name is David Gobatz. So it says here, aside from co-authoring the Magna Carta of books on the Muslim underworld, David Gobatz is a U.S. State Department-trained Arabic linguist and a retired federal agent with the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations. Among his many achievements, he is investigating felony crimes against the U.S. Air Force and government, and was the very first special civilian agent deployed in Nasiriyah, Iraq in 2003 for Operation Iraqi Freedom. He has received extensive training and experience in Islamic ideology and tactics, including from former members of Islamic terrorist groups. God, I can't say Islamic tonight. As well as from Muslim military and law enforcement who served under the late former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein. So with that being said, and I'm going to go back and put the picture back up because, quite frankly, it's much nicer to look at. I'm going to read to you some of the highlights from an article that was written. There was an interview that was given by David Gobatz for a major news media magazine, and I'll have that in the show notes as well. So he is asked, so what do you think is going to happen throughout our election, given the fact that the country is so polarized at this point? And these are his thoughts. And I'm telling you, it's horrible. On election night, he says, I guarantee Antifa and other left-wing terrorists will start very violent riots in most American cities, big and small. Biden and Harris support this type of violence. President Trump will win by a large majority, but it will not be recognized by Biden. Once Trump wins, he should immediately imprison Biden, Harris, Pelosi, and the Clintons and Mr. and Mrs. Obama for treason and sedition. Then he should immediately imprison Antifa, BLM, and their supporters. He concluded by saying, I give you 100% guarantee that on the night of November 3rd, Americans will see more violence than they have ever witnessed in their lifetime. Be prepared to protect your property and your family. I wanted to find out more about why Gabatz would make such a dreadful prediction, so I called him up in hopes of fleshing out his reasoning. He did not disappoint, and we had the following interview. So, first question is, why are you convinced the left will start its violent uprising on the election night, even though we're unlikely to see a winner declared until days or weeks later? He said, I think it's going to really ignite on election night, and of course accelerating as we follow through to the point where they do determine who won. Since the 1970s, I've been analyzing security situations and providing advice directly to government for 24 years, and all the indicators are there that starting election night, we are going to have so much violence it will at some point going forward be comparable to the first Civil War. We're already in the early stages of the second Civil War, but starting with election night, it's going to be so much greater than anything Americans have ever seen in their lifetime. He goes on to say, I think the night of the election is going to ignite Civil War 2.0, which, make no mistake, will be started by the leftists and the anarchists, and we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of people over the course of this if it gets out of control. So, he's asked, please share some of the signs that jump out at you. And he says, well, you're seeing it right now. People are hating one another strictly over politics. He says, I served under Presidents Democrat and both Republican, and I always believed that although there were differences, that they still loved this country. I no longer believe that. As a military veteran, I do not believe the Democrat Party loves this country. Then he's asked, what about the Muslim element? Do you expect that they will join in this revolution on the side of the Marxists, or will they sit this one out? And he says, when I've gone to the various mosques over the last year, whether it was in Michigan or West Virginia or in Florida, I saw them working in concert with the Democrats to get an administration in the White House that is Democrat, socialist, Marxist, whatever you want to call it. They're very much supporting Biden-Harris and the Marxist movement. It's the same in West Virginia and the same in Michigan. So the next question says, so they need each other to get this revolution done. And he says, Islamic groups don't have good organization. They're the worst organizers in the world. The Marxists, unfortunately, are expert organizers and stand side by side with one another no matter what. But Islamic groups are not like that. I'm going to go back to that second last sentence. The Marxists are expert organizers and stand side by side with one another no matter what. That typifies the so-called Democrat Party that we see in Congress and in the Senate today. Nobody goes outside the party platform. Nobody has any other speaking or talking points other than what Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and the top Democrat brass tell them to say. And unfortunately, AOC and the squad members have Nancy's ear and Schiff's ear. They are the ones pulling the strings. So they ask him, if Biden wins, what are your thoughts? And this is what he says. The executive branch under Biden would lead the way in silencing all opposition, rounding up dissidents, placing them in camps or prisons. None of these scenarios are far-fetched. The FEMA camps are still in place. I used to work with FEMA very closely as a federal agent. I know what kind of plans that they have. Folks, this is really happening in our country. So I want to read you something from Bloomberg. Americans are arming themselves with military gear at record rates heading into the election. Apparently, there's many in the U.S. who believe that the civil unrest and the volatility isn't just simply going to go away on its own after the election. This is probably why online purchases for items including military gear, items like a $220 CM6M gas mask, which is resistant to beanbag rounds, are flying off the online shelves. You can't buy ammunition in this country. There's none available. You can't buy ammunition anywhere. If you're lucky to walk into Kamalas and they happen to get a shipment of a couple of boxes and you're standing there, you might walk out with 1 or 2 boxes. That's it. Walmart just announced yesterday that they've now removed all the ammunition from their stores that were in the locked up glass cabinets in their sporting goods sections. It's now locked up in cages in the back. They've taken it off the shelves for fear of what's going to happen with the riots during election night and after. So I want to show you something that if this doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. But I'm going to expand this. And I want you to listen to how this woman introduces Kamala Harris. Because, folks, the whole Democrat Party knows that Pelosi and company are planning on using the 25th Amendment against Biden. If he wins, he's just a shill to get in. They're using him as the hook to get center people who are blind because everything I've talked about tonight, mainstream media won't even report. They removed all the stories off of Twitter. Facebook, you can't talk about it. They cut you out. They just had meetings by Zoom on Capitol Hill with senators interviewing the head of Twitter and the head of Facebook. And the two of them can't even name one person from the left that they banned. And the idiot from Twitter can't tell you if he even knows if the Biden story is fake news. He doesn't know, but they blocked it. Okay? So listen to how this woman at a Harris rally introduces her. It's unbelievable.
Because when future generations, they ask us, and they're going to ask us what it was like to elect the first woman of color as vice president of the United States, and we will say, yes, I was there, I stood up, and I was counted. Without further delay, I am so honored to introduce the next president of the United States, Senator Kamala Harris.
She's pleased to announce the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris. They're telling you what they're going to do. They've always been telling us what they're going to do. They've always been telling us. These are sick, twisted people. Now, I read you the story by Dave Gabatz that says that these riots are going to take place, that we're basically standing on the cusp of the Second Civil War, that we're already in the Second Civil War. And I've been saying that for the last 2 months. I told you 2 months ago on one of my shows, in the next 15 days, they'll be talking about war on our soil. And sure enough, I think it was day 11, they were talking about war on our shores. Couldn't believe it. But yes, they are. I want you to I'm going to read this to you. There's no video. I'm going to find the video. Probably already been taken down. But this is from CNBC News. Kamala Harris, after we impeach, we round up the Trump supporters. I'm not making this up. Shocking words were heard at a Democrat fundraiser for criminal justice reform yesterday from presidential hopeful Kamala Harris while giving a speech on the effectiveness of zero punishment prosecutions. She veered off script to talk about impeaching our president and describe in detail one crime she would not hesitate to punish, to the absolute delight of the liberal crowd. And in conclusion, I am confident that we stop being mean to these poor souls, they will come around and be productive members of society. They are not bad people, only bad judicial systems. That's a whole new story that shall be written later. Of course, there are exceptions like Cheeto. He's just bad and we will impeach. There is so much evidence against this guy, the mind boggles. Here's where it gets really interesting. And once he's gone and we have regained our rightful place in the White House, so she said this, right, during the impeachment. This is said May 1st, 2020, so it's just after the impeachment. Sorry. And once he's gone and we have regained our rightful place in the White House, look out if you supported him and endorsed his actions, because we will be coming for you next. You will feel the vengeance of a nation. No stone will be left unturned as we seek you out in every corner of this great nation, for it is you who have betrayed us. I'm not making this up, folks. This is from CNBC News. It's a trusted left-leaning site. And Harris is on there saying that she is going to come after us. And don't forget, I'm reading this story to you right after the video showing that she's being introduced as the next president of the United States. They plan on getting rid of him. She will be the puppet. She is as socialist as it gets. She was the most socialist senator on record in the U.S. Senate. And she gave an interview, which I will put in my show notes. I didn't want to go to the ends of the earth. I'm going to tell you about it, but I'll put it in the show notes. She gives an interview, I believe it's on ABC, and the reporter who's doing the interview won't let her off the hook because that person even says to her, so what do you say to the people who say that you're the most, liberal that sits in the Senate? And she laughs and she tries to laugh it off. And then the reporter says it's not funny because by your voting record, you are. And then you watch her. She stumbles. She does not want the American public to know that she is a radical socialist, bordering on communism. She doesn't want that out. So, I want to show you something else. And don't forget, she's telling everybody that at these rallies that it's okay, the riots are going to last. I've already showed you that 3 or 4 videos ago. The riots are going to last long after the election. Kamala is saying that, right? They won't stop. She's already said that they're going to round us up. Look at the videos that are on here. I'll put this in the show notes too. So this guy was so upset that during a Trump convoy, they had a Trump rally by car, that he was kicking and punching cars. This one here, they're throwing rocks over a bridge at the cars in the convoy. This is another one, they're throwing rocks at cars. I know exactly where that is, been on that road quite a few times. This is a woman who pepper sprayed a Jewish family's children for having Trump flags. This is in New York City. Now, this... And I wanted to show you this. I'm going to blow this up because you won't see this on the mainstream news. Let's put this back to 0. Come on. Oh, please play. Sure. Won't play. I will put these videos in the show notes. So, the Trump people are being attacked. New York City is lawless. The police are mainly powerless now because of the mayor that they have and the governor, who are the most rabid socialists that you'll see. Now, they did make arrests, but still, a lot of people got away. A lot of people got injured. This is getting out of control. So, I wanted to show you this is on a good note, and I love this.
Told by all these geniuses, all these brilliant guys, they all say, you can't win the state of California. I think we can.
more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this: never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. Never, ever quit. You never quit. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. Embrace that label. Being an outsider is fine. Embrace the label. Because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference.
405 freeway. Sky 5 flew over it this morning. It is facing northbound near Getty Center Drive as you enter the Sepulveda Pass. The white letters somewhat mimicking the famous Hollywood sign.
Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. The more people tell you it's not possible, that it can't be done, the more you should be absolutely determined to prove them wrong.
Isn't that awesome? So, this is absolutely phenomenal. This is a massive Trump rally in Beverly Hills.
We're going to make America great again, baby.
Obama is Trump 2020. I think that anybody who tells me to vote a certain way just because I'm black, that is actually racist.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to another episode. So let me just tell you, this is going to be an amazing vlog. I am about to vote right now. It's Halloween here in America, and I'm going to a Trump rally later, so stay tuned. But first, let me go cast my vote. Okay, guys, so I just voted. This is my old ballot that I'm going to keep. I just used it for reference because I voted at home. I just want to tell y'all I voted for Nithya.
Wouldn't it be absolutely awesome if Trump could flip California? Now, here's the problem, folks, right? Is that they are doing everything they can to suppress conservatives from going to the polls. You've got Dr. Fauci right now being interviewed on every left-leaning media outlet known to man, saying that Biden would do a better job on COVID than Trump. I thought that Fauci said that he wasn't in the business of doing politics, that he was in the business of doing pandemics and safety. So when did he shift from pandemics and safety and counseling the American public to shifting to politics and now saying that Biden is the guy to vote for? Well, I want to show you something. And before I show it to you, I couldn't get a hold of to get it on the show fast enough. I read it just before I came on, and I want to do some research on it. But some emails came out just before I went on to do this show that Obama is now tied to the Biden scandal in Ukraine. That Obama knew about it in earnest and that he condoned it, and Obama may have had kickbacks from it. So I want to show you something about Dr. Fauci, because I believe that Obama is tied to everything that's going on, I believe that Obama is still in charge of the shadow government that Trump is fighting. I believe that Obama pulls the strings of the likes of FBI Director Wray and the director of the CIA. I fully believe that. So this picture here says Dr. Fauci, Melinda Gates, and Barack Obama at the Wuhan laboratory in 2015. So this is right after the Obama administration gave funding for $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory to keep up the research on the corona bat virus. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So, I want to read you this, and then I'm going to get in to close the show. So this is from a staffer that worked for the Biden campaign. Nobody is talking about it, but the look on everyone's faces says it all. This campaign is over. I feel ashamed to have campaigned for Joe, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. Several campaign workers and volunteers have quit showing up over the last few days. It's basically like a ghost town here. After I make this post, I'm leaving too, and I'm never coming back. Joe is corrupt and his family has serious issues. There is no way Joe is going to win this election. We have made so many phone calls and knocked on so many doors. Many people basically tell us to F off, but most of them will write to us, but most of them will listen for a few seconds and then tell us that they're not interested. But the way they say it, you just know they would never consider voting for Joe. There is something really strange about all of that. I have campaigned now for over 10 years, and this year is so much different with the way people are responding to us. Anyways, I thought you guys might like to hear it from the horse's mouth. Helping a little bit to expose all of these lies is the least I can do before I leave this campaign behind. Wow, that's unbelievable. So, I read you the other day on my last show who Gao was. And I'll put the link to the interview with the richest Chinese man who's now, he's being hidden by the U.S. government because the CCP government in China wants him dead. So the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, used Liu Yifei, a famous Chinese movie star who plays Mulan in the Mulan movie, to sex bribe Hunter Biden. Everything has been taped by the CCP so they can blackmail Hunter and Joe Biden. The CCP owns the Biden family. Huh. Well, my mom asked me, do I have any pictures from Hunter Biden from the sex stuff? Yeah, and here's one here. So, it says here, Naomi Biden, Hunter's daughter. It says the nose is a perfect match. Is that really his daughter that he's doing that to? I mean, these people are corrupt. Corrupt to the core. Corrupt to the core. So speaking of Fauci and the CDC, from the CDC is research by Meyer, updated from the CDC. Of the 220,000 deaths reported as due to COVID, the actual cause was 88,308 from pneumonia and from influenza, 17,999 chronic respiratory disease, 26,365 respiratory distress syndrome, 23,275 people died of heart disease, 28,000 had cardiac arrest, 6,892 other cardiac, renal, diabetes, sepsis, cancer, obesity, and dementia. It says only 6%, 13,200 of those who were reported as died actually died of COVID. 130,000 of total deaths were patients who already had life-ending diseases. More than 10,000 of the 3,200 who died from COVID were already on hospice care. Doctors speculate these patients were critically ill and died from pre-existing conditions. The CARES Act put in by Congress gives hospitals a 20% bonus on their diagnoses rated group paid by Medicare. Doctors are being paid to list deaths as COVID without any indication the death was COVID related. Around 3,000 have actually died from COVID alone. This report has been officially published by the CDC. They're locking down states. So to give you more of an idea regarding this whole Hunter Biden thing, so I want to get into the gentleman that Tucker interviewed, Tony Bobulinski. He happens to be friends with Ro Khanna, who's a congressman from California. I'm sure that Ro is going to be heavily censored when Congress is back in session. He writes to Tony Bobulinski, Tony, hope you're doing okay. I did give you an on-the-record statement to the New York Times that I know you. You have always acted honorably with me, and you and other family members supported me. I have told any media outlet that I've asked the same thing. I have refused to comment on the details of your allegations because I don't have any personal knowledge about that, but I have said I respect your service to our country and that you have never been a partisan hack in our interactions and have talked about putting country over party first. I also have made it clear that I do not think you are a Russian agent. I will continue to make that statement to any media that asks. Though I'm going to put both these screens in the show notes and the link to get to them. But I found this and I thought this was rather telling. The greatest fear in D.C. is that an executive branch uncontrolled by the establishment will lead to the exposure of the corruption that has become the foundation of our government. This is the real reason why Trump is under constant attack. Talked about that earlier in the show. So, again, to get back at David Gabut's story, police departments are likely to collect intelligence on social media, cancel days off, and prepare tactical response teams ahead of possible election day unrest. This was in a news article. I'll post this in the show notes. A New York-based police union official likened the city's level of preparedness to the days following 9/11 and said this is not something to take lightly right now. Two union officials told the Daily Caller News Foundation that officers should apprehend instigators quickly in the event that riots break out as the election nears. Police departments are set to cancel days off, prepare tactical response teams, and gather intelligence about possible election unrest as November 3rd quickly approaches, according to two police union officials. So, with that being said, I want to tie all of this up. So I started the show by saying, why did they open the impeachment? Well, the impeachment was opened because Trump had a conversation with the president of Ukraine and asked him to investigate the Bidens. Now, if you remember back, in 2016's election, it came down to Hillary and they bumped Bernie out. In this election, it came down to Biden and they bumped Bernie out. It's 2 times they bumped Bernie out. 2 times. You had one who's implicated in the Benghazi scandal. She's implicated in all kinds of other crimes. She's implicated in money laundering. She's implicated in her email debacle. This woman has a lot of things against her. And she ran for president. And they installed her and they took out Bernie. Now you come to the 2020 election and they install Biden and they take out Bernie. And Biden is up to his ears in corruption. They wanted to install these people because they knew that while the campaign was going on, they wouldn't really be able to do anything about it except release the information to the news media. And this time the news media has become more devious because now they don't even cover stories. It's like it doesn't even exist. They don't talk about it. They don't publicize it. So, it started off with the impeachment because of a phone call that Trump had with the president of the Ukraine. So to sum up and tie all of this together, Adam Schiff and the so-called Democrats, they said that they had proof of Russian collusion with Trump. They never produced a damn thing. Schiff tried to hold our president's feet to the fire for a phone call. Pelosi spent taxpayer dollars on commemorative pens. Still nothing. But CNN, ABC, CBS, they all refuse to continue coverage of exactly what everyone knows is true. Hunter Biden profited because his father met with people and organized payments. The media won't cover this. The Democrats asked outright to conduct the investigation after the election. We've had 3.5 years of false narratives against our president. Yet you put your Democrat heads to sleep soundly because Schiff wants you to believe that it's Russia, Russia, Russia all over again. Schiff was called out. The FBI and the CIA both said that the contents of the laptops are real. So please tell me how Trump is ruining our country. I'm asking everybody out there who views this video, please post it on Facebook. They are censoring all of us. And I'm going to show you what I wrote as a comment to a person who listed a bunch of fake news. And I wrote her name is Sherry Poor. You should go and follow her and pound her into the ground. I said, Sherry Poor Tell. That's her name. Stop being a gaslit, windbag, propaganda whore. I didn't call her a whore. I said, stop being a gaslit, windbag, propaganda whore. And I got kicked off of Facebook again 2 days before the election. And they're saying that my comment didn't follow their community standards on harassment and bullying. Now, I know for a fact that every single one of you that follow Facebook have seen comments far worse than that never get removed. But you see, lately, I've been going on Chris Murphy and Blumenthal's page, and I have been wrecking them daily. I've been posting all of the facts about Burisma, Hunter Biden, Blumenthal's involvement, Pelosi's involvement, Adam Schiff's involvement, and Chris Murphy, his involvement. That's all I've been doing is I'm going on Chris Murphy and Blumenthal's page. And I make one comment that's a little bit out of the norm. Boom, I get annexed from Facebook for 30 days. I'm reading on Facebook tonight, another one of my friends. She is one of the leaders of the Connecticut militia. Well, she has lost almost everybody on her page has been removed from Facebook, like shut down. They closed their Facebook pages. Why? Because they don't want anybody to be able to communicate because they don't want you to organize. So I want to get into the last thing here. I still love my center Democrat friends and my center Democrat family. But in the very end, you're going to see this your way and I'm going to see this mine. So I want to read this to you because I think this is very fitting for where we are right now. You see Trump's arrogance, I see Trump's confidence. You see Trump's nationalism, and I see Trump's patriotism. You hear Trump's unsophisticated words, I hear Trump's honesty. I hear Trump talk like I do. I hear Trump talk like people I associate with. You see Trump's racism, I see Trump's words being misconstrued and twisted by the media to fit their narrative 24/7. Did you know that in the last 90 days, they reviewed the news, right? Came back that 92.4% of the content on mainstream news was all negative information on Trump. 92.4% of the content on mainstream news was all on Trump. And it was all negative. That means they only said 7-point-some% positive things about him? So you might as well say 8%. What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. The media are the wingmen. They're the cover for the Democrats. They've been neutralized by the CIA. They've been infiltrated. These people are all shills. All paid shills. You see Trump as a Republican, I see Trump as a patriot. You see Trump as a dictator, I see Trump as a U.S. patriot and a U.S. leader. You see Trump as an authoritarian, I see Trump as the only one willing to fight for the common everyday American's freedoms. You see Trump as childish, I see Trump as a fighter. unwilling to cave into the lies. And that's all it's been, is 3.5 years of nonstop mainstream Democrat, socialist, communist lies. You see Trump as an unpolished politician. I see Trump as a breath of fresh air. Something this country's needed since John Fitzgerald Kennedy. You think Trump hates immigrants. I know Trump is married to an immigrant, and I know that he goes out of his way to help immigrants in inner cities by promoting business and giving these people jobs. But they're legal immigrants, not illegal immigrants. You see Trump putting an end to immigration in America. I see Trump welcoming immigrants legally into America. You see Trump's cages at the border. I see Obama's cages at the border. Now, you can go on, and I challenge you, go on to DuckDuckGo and go and type in Obama border cages. And you are going to get story after story with pictures of the cages that Obama built of the kids in cages. But if you go to Google and you type in Trump's cages, you're going to see the pictures of the same cages with the same kids. Why? Because they have to frame Trump as the racist. Because they have nothing on. He's been investigated 5 times, folks. They found nothing. Yet the media claim that his kids are all bad. His kids are corrupt. He stopped overseas business when he won the presidency. He wouldn't let his kids build anymore because of the presidency. He didn't want anybody to say that they were taking money illegally. Yet it's okay for the Bidens to, and the media doesn't cover it. We have a real problem here, folks. And you can't let the media fool you. You can't let Dr. Fauci fool you. You need to go and vote on Tuesday in person. I don't care how long the lines are. I don't care if it rains, snows. I don't care if they're calling for a hurricane, tornado. You need to go and vote. You need to go and vote. You need to protect yourself too, but you need to go and vote. You see Trump with a struggling economy. I see Trump with an amazing economy until the Democrats shut it all down and locked up the blue states. Did you know that on a quarterly note, the economy improved over 7%? Double any time in our history. And annualized, 34.2%. A number that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's like we haven't caught back up with what we lost. But yeah, we almost have. And imagine we did that without the blue states. The blue states are all in lockdown. I know, I live in one and I work in another one. But the red states have opened up. People are going back to work. Did you know that they're saying that the shelves in a lot of instances with a lot of goods are empty? Factories, they don't have any production. So when they turn back on these factories and people go back to work, this V-shaped recovery that we're seeing is just going to skyrocket. But they didn't want to allow the blue states to open up because they didn't want to give Trump another win before the election. They've tried everything to get rid of this man. Everything. They've thrown everything they've got at him. And they can't do it. The only way they're going to win is by voter suppression and by voter fraud. When you go to the polls, folks, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes peeled for any weird things that are going to go on. But you need to go and vote. It's a must. It's a must. Every vote counts. Every vote. You see the violence in the streets and call it Trump's America? I see the violence in the streets of Democrat-run cities that are refusing Trump's help, and I call it the results of liberal America. You say you want someone more presidential? I'm happy we have someone who finally doesn't just talk the talk, but actually walks the walk for the American people. You and I, as a Democrat versus a conservative, you and I see things very differently. unless you're someone who sits in the center and loves their country as much as I do. And lastly, leadership means making a stand for your constituents and your countrymen against the grain of your party. These people that have been elected have lined their own pockets at the expense of the American citizens, and they've sold out our country. Most so-called Democrat leaders are far from being leaders. We need new leadership in the House that puts Americans first. Vote red up and down this ticket and make these swamp creatures understand that the power rests with us. Because this election, folks, the election is between communism and the direct Declaration of Independence and our rights and freedoms and our liberty. That's all this election is about. You can take the two men out of it. But I'm telling you, you can see by what I've shown you tonight, these people have been out to get Trump from the very beginning because he has been draining the swamp and ending the money laundering that has been permeating our government foundation going back 50 years. We need to end this. We need to gain our country back. And right now, Trump, the outsider, is the only one fighting for us. Now imagine Trump wins, Director Wray, gone. And we get a new FBI director, one that's actually going to clean the FBI up. CIA director, gone. We get one that's going to clean the CIA up. We can do this, America. We can get our country back. We can avoid socialism. We can avoid what's going to happen. We're going to go through some turbulent times between Election Day and maybe right up until January. But if Trump wins, and he wins big, he needs to put his foot down, and these people need to go to jail. Barr needs to do his job. Durham needs to come out with his report. And all of these people need to be put in jail. They need to be tried, convicted, and put in jail. And if it's treason, you know what they're going to get. And I was kicked off Facebook a month and 3 days ago for another I've only had my Facebook back for 3 days. For basically telling Chris Murphy that if they commit treason, they should be hung. They should bring back public hangings for the people who are traitors to this country. They should bring it back. They want to round up Trump supporters? I say put all of Antifa and BLM in jail. Round up all the people who are the leaders in the Democrat Party who have committed treason against the United States and tried to enact a coup against the duly elected president of the United States. They should be tried for treason, and if they're guilty, they should hang in a public hanging in a public square. People need to know that this will never be tolerated in America ever again. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we didn't get there by being pussies and patsies. We need to take our country back, folks. And we can't let these socialist commie bastards win. You need to go to the polls, and you need to vote. All right. That's enough for today's show. I hope you liked it. If you hit like, please hit the like button if you like the show. I'm gaining subscribers. If you like the show, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And we'll see what happens after Election Day, and I'll give you an account of what goes on Election Day that the mainstream media may not show you. So please, folks, take care of yourselves. Be on guard at the polls. Watch your back. Be safe. May God bless you. May God bless your family. And may God bless the United States of America. Have a great night. See you soon.